Yeah, I mean, this is a bit awkward, but
Welcome to the Home Recording Show. We are back. I know it's been a minute, but we're doing this with video now.
yeah. And, hopefully it all works. This is just the first episode back and trying out all these new things to get this working. But yeah. So I'm John Tidey of
I'm Ryan
the Reaper
Canestro,
blog.
and I'm not anywhere anymore. I'm just here.
So the plan for today is to catch up to where we are now in our life, because it's been how many years? It's been since
5?
2008. 2008 is when we first started this show, and so much we're just completely different humans now. So I thought it'd be
So we did the
interesting
show
to,
for 5 years, and it's been 5 years since we've done the show, really, right?
something like that. Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to kind of go back to the beginning of our personal story of how we got into audio, and then maybe we'll talk about what's next for the show.
Yeah, and maybe a little bit about how we started the show and kind of catch up and get us current.
Yeah, so this is kind of starting over, new episode 1. We're going to call this
Season
season
3.
3. Season 3.
Because there was that one episode we did, or maybe 2, I think, in that 5 or 7 year gap. So that was season 2. You're welcome, everybody.
Well, I mean, the main thing is we're not calling this season 2 because we can't just go to 201, because we already have an episode 201. So season, and it doesn't feel right to have this as episode 252, because it's just such a long gap between, and the format's different. So yeah, let's give it a shot.
I'll see what happens.
Who are we now? Let's start at the beginning. If you don't mind, I'll go first.
Get it.
My musical journey started in high school. Started playing bass and played in bands in high school. My first band we were called Terminal Diarrhea. And we weren't good. We played...
so aptly named.
Yeah, we played System of a Down covers, stuff like that, like new metal stuff. No originals at that time. My last year of high school, I actually had to go back for 6 months, or 1 semester, and I ended up getting on the student council just so that I could organize concerts, just so I could get my band to play the concerts. But I also learned how to set up a PA and how to use a mixer at that time. So at the time, it didn't really seem that important. It seemed like self-serving, but it ended up leading to where, now I still use the same skills.
And I love that you use political manipulation to get yourself there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's important.
Yeah. That school had just such terrible old gear, but we made it work.
There was a certain charm in having garbage gear and making it work, as opposed to having the proper tools now. I feel like if I could have had some of the stuff I have now, then I would have loved it. But at the same time, I don't know. I think there was something fun about making old crap work, and I still do that today.
Yeah, I think you don't really appreciate something that works all the time until you've had all the crap that doesn't work all the time.
Yeah.
I did the concerts at school. I was in bands in high school for the couple years after I moved away from that town, and I started a new band. And
Explosive Diarrhea?
No, we were called Serenity and 1,000 Screams. We actually wrote some original music. We had 5 or 6 songs.
Oh, we're going to insert a clip right here?
I wish. I think MySpace lost all the files.
MySpace lost all? Yeah, they lost all that music. And
yeah,
that was before we were good about backing stuff up.
It's possible some music exists, and if someone can link to it, that would be pretty amazing. It would just hurt me inside to listen to that stuff again.
Oh, I've got some of my old recordings, and there will be no clips here.
Yeah, I just know it's bad. So in that town, there were no clubs, there were no promoters, no one was asking for live music. So the kids in high school and recently graduated from high school that wanted to hang out and do shows and stuff, it had to be a house show, or we had to pay for the community center to put on a show. And so I had to organize for the town to get shows happening. And at that time I was playing bass and like I was in like rock star mode, even though we're in a small town, and I'm like got like 5-inch platform shoes so that I'm like super tall on stage and fishnet.
Insert pictures here because this is a video show now.
Maybe I'll put in
Please find a picture. Yeah.
But yeah, and then it was like it was amazing. But like eventually the band broke up and it just wasn't working because no one was as dedicated to making it a career as I was. Around that time, I started getting into sampling and circuit bending. So using the computer more for making music. I actually had kind of a electronic metal band, just three guys and a DVD player as our drum machine.
And we definitely got into some of the circuit bending stuff in some of the earlier shows in season 1.
Oh, did we?
Yeah, we definitely talked about. We did a whole speak and spell thing. I think you did a whole segment.
Oh, maybe. I don't even remember that stuff.
It's in there somewhere. John doesn't remember any of the show. He was blackout drunk
very little.
All of season 1. And this story up until now sounds like you ended up starting your political career by way of music, but it stayed in music. This could have gone either way.
It did. So I got super frustrated with all the attempts at recording our music. Like when I was in high school, I knew that I wanted to work in a studio, but the school had no idea how to get me there. So eventually, I was on the internet. I somehow got onto this mailing list. A school contacted me and I signed up and I went there. So that was called Metalworks Institute. It's in Mississauga, Ontario, which is just outside of Toronto. And, that was a huge change for me living in a kind of a large city. I was used to living up north and very rural farm area. And actually it was great. It was an intense full year of school where I was also working at a grocery store, night shift, not night shift, but I was there till after midnight most nights. And then getting up at 6 to go to school for 8 hours as well. So I was just exhausted, disassociating and everything. Like it didn't feel like real life, but
great for songwriting.
But it was just like, I knew that was what I wanted to do. Like it felt right. And I was learning so much at such a quick pace. And to keep my learning going, I started a blog called Audio Geek Zine, which
I've heard of that.
And which is probably how we met, I'm pretty sure. And a lot of that actually made a lot of connections. And it was just a way for me to keep my learning going by sharing what I find throughout the week.
Yeah, it turns out if you put yourself out there, you'll find people.
The name Audio Geek is just what we would call each other at school because we're like, it's all we would talk about. It's all we would think about. And then zine from magazine because we were at the start of the website, I was putting things out in like, I think it was a weekly chunk or every 2 weeks I would put out a chunk of, 5 or 7 articles at once. And, quickly that went away because it was just too much effort to like time everything to do that. And like no one really cared. There wasn't a lot of readers at that point, but it did catch some attention, like people like Ryan Canestro and Joe Gilder and probably Ian Shepherd and a bunch of other people.
Well, it's great because that whole community of people that were doing podcasts and blogs, we all were very friendly. We all got together. We started doing the roundtable podcasts. We got to meet everybody. And John won't come south of the border up there in Canada, but I would go to all the trade shows and I would meet everybody that was in that group. And it was so great to be part of that community. So much fun, even virtually.
Yeah, it was never like a competition or anything like that.
Because these were all the people that were willing to share. There's a bunch of people that don't want to share anything, and we didn't hear from them. But everyone that was out there helping and just spreading the word and sharing their successes and failures, those were the people that we formed a community with. And still, anytime I think of these people or see them or hear from them, it's fantastic. They're a great group of people all these years later, still. After
I had started the blog, I don't know if I had the podcast yet, but I did an internship for a few months at the studio for the school. And that was super interesting. And I learned a lot, but also I kind of learned that that's not the right thing, especially when you're depressed because of student loan debt. It just was not a good fit for me. I did get to work on the theme song for The Big Bang Theory, which,
see, I didn't know this. It's new information.
I got to hear the original GarageBand session of that song.
They Might Be Giants, right?
Yeah, Bare Naked Ladies.
I was close.
Yeah, it equivalent.
Is that the Canadian
version of it? Yeah. So after that, there's a store in my town called Revolution Audio. They were a very small store that had a little studio inside. Like, they specialized in home recording equipment. They did sales of that stuff. They did lessons, like private lessons. They had the studio, and also like kind of group session things where they would, show how to mic an acoustic guitar, and you can hear it live in a small group setting. And I volunteered to help in one of those things. They didn't need anyone at that time to help with that particular class, but they're like, actually, we do need someone, just to close up at night or whatever. So I ended up getting a job, and right away I had access to that studio, and I took advantage of that. Like, the first weekend I was there, I brought in a band to record. We were recording drums, I think. Yeah, I didn't exactly ask permission at that, but I didn't realize that at the time. But anyways, I just finished my internship when that opportunity happened, and then I was there for several years, 2007 to 2013 technically. But I did move to Vancouver. That store switched to online only for a couple months, and I was working from home. But while I was working there, we started the podcast, and you just contacted me through, must have been a form on my website or left a comment or something. And then that got the ball rolling on 250 episodes of that show. And we got to meet so many people from that, like people that we never would have had access to, kind of just working on our own if we hadn't been out there and shared our knowledge and willingness to learn new things and try things out.
Oh yeah. The learning was number one.
How would we ever work with Ron and Chris Murphy if it wasn't for the show? And there's so many other people. It allowed us to, in a way, be experts in a very giving way rather than egocentric. Like that.
And it was for me, it was forced learning. That was the best part of it. I had to take a new subject every week and figure it out and test it and do examples and try something new. It forced me to continuously learn, and then we would put something out, and then we would get feedback and then expand on that, and then share each other's knowledge in discussion of every segment. It was huge.
So in 2010, the store was moving to online. I wanted to move anyways before we had our baby, and so then, like, officially, I've been working from home since 2010, and well, recently, that's a huge advantage. But
you were already set up for that.
Exactly. So at that time, I was doing all kinds of freelance work. I did some podcast production. I did some audiobook recording, singer-songwriter stuff, recorded some rappers, all kinds of stuff. And it's just like local, small budget stuff, but it was, it's what I needed to do to just keep everything going. Audio Geek Scene wasn't really making any money. I hadn't considered putting videos on YouTube at that point. And I think we were going pretty strong for a while with the podcast during that time. Yeah. I switched to Reaper around 2010, not too long earlier before the actual move to Vancouver.
I was about a year or two after you on the Reaper thing.
Oh, yeah. It took you a while. And I was just put kind of like all of my effort and energy into learning that to be really proficient in that. I was doing local lessons, so going to people's houses and teaching them how to use Reaper or whatever other DAW. Because from working at the store, I had experience with Pro Tools. Well, most of my Pro Tools experience was from using it at home and also at the studio or in school. I also had experience with Cubase and Sonar and Reason.
GarageBand.
I forget what other ones were popular at the time, but I kind of had a lot of experience with different things, all the equipment and stuff. So that really helped. And actually, they were kind of the people that forced me to get into teaching. They got me to do my first one-on-one lessons in someone's house. They got me to do the small group lessons. And that was such a huge advantage. Actually, totally forgot that once I moved to Vancouver, one of the ways I made contacts was to start a meetup group. And that was really great at first. I would do small group lessons and just kind of teach various home recording topics. And that was a great way to get in contact with a lot of different people. But eventually that's kind of just stopped working and ended up costing me more money than it was generating in any way. But it was good for a minute. So Reaperblog, the site existed before I came on. So it was actually a side project of Pro Tools Expert. So Russ Hughes had started that. I forget what year it was. Maybe it was 2011, or maybe 2011 is when I actually took over. But he basically just gave it to me.
That was 10 years ago.
Gave it to me for $1 or something like that. And then it took me quite a while to actually get going on that properly. It wasn't until, I want to say 2013. So in 2011, I had one video up on the YouTube channel. And 2016, I had 132 that year. It's so tough to keep up at that pace. I wouldn't want to watch most of those videos now, but like that's really where I put in a lot of effort in 2015, 2016, a lot of effort into just kind of getting some attention around that project and seeing.
Well, that's when you became a video guy.
Yeah, I really put myself out there like on camera, and that's such a great skill to have. Totally changed everything about what I do.
And video gets more attention. I mean, I love doing the audio podcast and I hate cameras, but here we are.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting challenge to have both. When you work from home, I think you watch podcasts more than if you have to go out every day and you have a commute, then audio only is the way to go. And it wasn't until 2020 that I realized that because I totally switched. So our podcast, after 250 episodes, we kind of we got burnt out on it. We were also super busy with everything else. I was doing the Reaperblog and freelance work. You were doing
chaos, absolute chaos. I was mixing TV shows.
And there was a good couple years when I thought I was never going to get back into podcasting. I ended up coming on as an editor for Ian Shepard's The Mastering Show podcast. And then after a couple episodes of that, I ended up being the co-host as well. So
John's everywhere.
Yeah, kind of by necessity, I think. But yeah, now Reaperblog is my full-time job. It's like my main income, and I'm doing very little freelance work. A couple people that know me will send me mastering jobs or drum editing jobs, but even the drum editing, I used to do that a ton. That used to be a super important part of my income, but now I haven't done any of it in a year. So
I used to send you messes to fix, and you did some amazing work.
Yeah, that pretty much catches us up. Your turn.
Well, for me, I started off as a kid just being fascinated with connecting gear together. Old VCRs, tape machines, 8-track tape that, people were like, this is ancient stuff. Here, let the kid play with it. And I was fascinated with recording sounds. I started getting dual cassette machines or 2 separate cassette machines, running them through a Radio Shack mixer. I figured out overdubbing on my own before I knew that was a thing. I'm like, if I play this one, run it through the mixer, I could record another track on top of that. I started figuring that stuff out before I knew that it was a thing that was done. So I was always into the gear and started off as a musician, as a kid taking piano lessons starting in first grade. So I took piano lessons all through elementary school, was learning music, not in the way I wanted to learn music. I had the little old lady piano teacher that taught me songs that I still haven't even heard most of them ever before or since.
The traditional music teaching is really tough. It's hard to keep interested in that.
Yeah. And there was like one book that had songs that were on the radio. She didn't understand any of it. So there was definitely a very wide generation gap, me being 7 years old and her being in her 70s. In 7th grade, I picked up guitar on my own and started teaching myself. songs I actually wanted to learn, started teaching myself the instrument. And that's when I felt like I actually became a musician. And that's when we started having, garage rock, just horribly shitty punk rock, loud, trashy drums, concrete floors, but playing awful, awful music that the neighbors hated a lot. But in that time, even then, I had a cassette tape machine with 2 inputs and 2 omnidirectional Radio Shack mics that were $20 each. And I would position those in the room and would continuously move them around to be able to capture the best version of that horrible, horrible music, which I still have copies of. But I was starting to understand mic position and placement, and still not really focusing on composition and the music, but always kind of focusing on the gear. And that was something, it took me a lot of years to realize that even as I got better as a musician, started playing with great bands, started getting shows on stage where I thought I wanted to be, that guitar guy. And for me, I enjoyed the music, but if it got me more girls because I was the guy on stage, that started becoming a thing I liked. But it was always about the gear. I was always more fascinated with, how do I get my guitar to sound like this? How do I build these effects? How do I stack these effects and pedals and power conditioning? And I really got into the gear side of it, and I got really good at that. And that made perfect sense to me. Music's always seemed abstract, and I love it, and I still enjoy playing it, but it became about the gear. So once I was in bands and going to world-class recording studios, I was like looking around going, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what feels right to me. These old preamps and these mixing boards and combining these channels and mixing and layering effects and all of that, that was what I wanted to do. So that's what I kind of figured out. And I realized I'm never going to be as good as this other guitar player in my band who was phenomenal. I'm like, I'm never going to be that guy. But I can be that guy when it comes to recording and tracking and that whole world. So that's when I kind of made that decision to start buying microphones, start getting into recording, start recording other people. I put together my own rig and started doing independent jobs. Then I built a small studio with a partner, started recording bands there, then built my own place in my home, turned a garage into a studio with a live room, control room, vocal booth, and even a dedicated bathroom with a private entrance, so they didn't have to come through my house.
About that.
Yeah, I had Ditch Road Records, and for years I was recording out of there, doing voiceovers. I even had a prominent politician come over to do a voiceover, and his assistant showed up. He's like, "This is just some dude's house." I'm like, "Yeah, but come inside." And he came in. It's like a full studio. I was like, "Oh, okay." So like I did these super right-wing Republican ads, but yeah, people would call me like I was a regular studio, and I could turn out those kind of results. So I did that for a long time. And then I started getting into post-production mixing, which I still to this day hate and try not to do at all. But from there, I started doing on-set recording, and that started making sense to me. That I really loved. And my dad was in the movie industry, so I was on set as a kid doing more of physical labor, but then going, okay, I know set, I know sound, let's do sound on set. And that I picked up really fast. I went from getting my basic gear, and within a year, I had a professional rig, and I was doing professional jobs with top celebrities and talent. That's where I've been, I don't know, since 2008, I guess. I started doing that maybe 2006 on smaller projects. But now I primarily mix TV shows for Disney, and that's where I'm at. And not only do I do sound on set, but I kind of specialize in the most complicated, big, impossible stuff. Like, oh, we need to mic 20 people, and we have to have 10 earwigs in, and we have to have multiple producers be able to talk to different channels and groups of talent on set simultaneously, and just massive 100-channel rigs. That's kind of where I ended up. But it all came back to building my own studio, doing the podcast, learning everything I could possibly learn, doing live sound, which I also did at nightclubs all through that same time. All of those skills I apply to what I do today. And all of it applies, but usually a live sound mixer isn't going to mix something on set, isn't going to be in a recording studio. All these sound jobs are kind of in their own little groups, but
Yeah.
I did all of them because I'm insane.
I think that's a big advantage. Just knowing all those different fields and how they differ and how
what
actually
applies.
a lot of it is the same.
Yeah. But like doing the live sound with a band on stage, they're going to play in 3 minutes no matter what. You've got to get it together. Same thing on set. There's that urgency, but you still have to maintain that quality of a recording studio where you have all the time in the world. Well, not all the time, but you have more time to get things just right. And then, location audio, being a studio guy, I want to hear things a certain way, but they have me next to a freeway on-ramp, but I still have to get clean dialogue. So, trying to figure out how to get all those things to work. It's fun. It's challenging. It's interesting. And I think the location keeps me on my toes enough and the scenery changes enough where I don't get bored. I don't get complacent. I want to keep moving forward. I want to keep trying new things. Where in live sound, I was just starting to burn out.
Yeah, it's the long hours, the loud noise, everything.
Yeah. No, it's tough too. And
even going to a concert, I don't enjoy that much because of the sound of or just the volume. For me, it's hard to enjoy the music, but
no, I go in earplugs and I can't hear the highs, but at least I can not want to rip my ears out of my head.
Yeah, you actually sleep at night.
Yeah. And, doing post audio, you're sitting in a room by yourself for hours on end, and then notes just come in continuously. So that's a no-go as well.
So I was looking at your IMDb page. Tons of stuff on there. One thing caught my eye.
Which one's that?
Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg.
Yeah. I did sound effects playback on season 1 of that show. And I did another thing with Snoop. What was that? I did the verses with him and DMX right before DMX passed. And then I was just in Las Vegas last week doing the Gala Games convention, GalaCon or GalaCon, however you say it, for that video game thing. And I recorded Maroon 5 and Snoop Dogg was there for a show and several other bands.
Cool.
And that was another one of those crazy things where they have 5 stages and I had to record all audio from all 5 stages simultaneously. So
that's a situation where it's live sound plus studio quality plus it's on-set audio.
Yeah.
So it's all 3 of your skill sets there in one.
And because I know all of the stage stuff, the supervisor that was running the live audio, he was cool. We were able to talk, work everything out. It was all on a Dante network, so I was able to bring all that back over IP. And then I had to generate time code and make sure that all the cameras were synced to that time code. But yeah, it's, again, all of those disciplines, and there's not a whole lot of people that can do all of those things that have done all of those things. So again, I get that call. And it wasn't until 48 hours before I was actually on a plane to Las Vegas that they told me I was doing that instead of just following around a camera with a bag recording whatever I boomed. So I had to change up my plan real quick.
Yeah, no kidding.
Slightly different setup. And that ended up being 64 channels of audio recording 12 hours a day for 3 days. Well, 2 full days and then partial on Friday.
So I think we're caught up. Super interesting stuff. So Ryan, do you remember how we actually got started with a podcast?
I do. So I was putting out a blog where I was doing kind of what we were doing in the audio format. And I just didn't enjoy writing it so much. I enjoyed the content, but I felt it was better if I could talk. And I didn't want to talk by myself. So I was like, well, I need to find some people to talk to.
Yeah, solo podcast is pretty tough.
Yeah. And I wanted someone else's point of view, knowledge. And at the time, I was reading your blog and a couple others. And I hit you guys up. I think sent out like 5 emails, and 2 or 3 of you responded. I think it was just maybe the 2. It was you and Des McKinney. And I said, hey, do you guys want to do this show? And you guys were
And
like,
we both
yeah,
lived in the same city.
which is insane. You guys signed up, and then Des did 2 shows, and then you and I did 251.
Yeah, plus bonus episodes.
Yeah. And then, after we were doing it for a while, we met Jesse, and then he did, maybe 100 shows with us, or 80,
Something
I don't
like
even
that,
know.
yeah.
And then after that, we had co-hosts of all the people we met along the way, and would just jump them in. That was fun. Always having a rotating co-host or guest host. That was fun. And that added some new life into it too. But I mean, we covered a lot of ground in all those episodes. I mean, we did a show a week for 5 straight years, and I think we missed a Christmas and one other week once. Like it was insane.
We had a pretty good track record there. But yeah, it's an easy thing to get burnt out on or to fall behind on, because we never did shows in advance, really.
No. I think we maybe did 1 or 2 when it was like we had to do a guest or someone's schedule was earlier. But for the most part, we just did it on a regular day. Yeah,
I think there was one point where I think it was 3 or 4 interviews in a week, just so we could get some content in advance, kind of. Even that's tough. Those are tiring.
Yeah, it's a lot. And the show, it was not an easy thing to do. There's a lot of editing. There was a lot of prep. The segments would take each of us hours. And then even after we did those segments individually, then there would be the recording of the show and then the putting the entire show together. I mean, it was all in, maybe 8 hours for each show to get everything done from top to bottom.
Yep.
To do an hour.
So things are going to be a little different now. We're not going to spend that kind of time on that stuff, because I think for the visual aspect of it,
we're rolling
this
live.
Works fine. This is more or less live, and I don't really have the bandwidth to do pre-recorded segments that are, on top of the videos that I make for the Reaper blog already.
And I'm sure I'll pepper a few in, but I don't expect John to be doing any long form anything. But maybe we'll work on some projects. Maybe I'll fly to John and we'll do something together. I'll make him do something. Because still to this day, never been in the same room at the same time. Not ever.
So we're gonna do more like kind of casual conversation things. I think a lot of people enjoyed that, just having 2 people that are interested in a topic talking about it. We could also do some more sort of basic recording concepts and stuff like that, and kind of just talk off the top of our head and discuss things. So like, why one microphone is better than another microphone for whatever situation. We don't need to prepare much for that because we've talked about it so many times. We have experience with those types of things already. So
yeah, and we could bring on some other people that have something to say, something interesting, and then engaging conversations. There's plenty of content. There's plenty to talk about. We've already come up with several ideas for future shows. So plenty of fun stuff to do. But I think there were a lot of people from before that just liked it when we were just kind of be able to sit in the studio and just kind of fly on the wall and hear people talk about stuff they were interested in.
Yeah. And we always had a good amount of comments and feedback about a lot of the episodes. So that's always fun. We had a pretty good community built up around the home recording show, and we got a lot of opportunities from that. People sending us albums to mix or to do mastering on, people sending in segments to share on the show. And just the amount of people we got to reach through that show, I don't think we really, when we were in the thick of it, we didn't really realize it at the time, I think. But I definitely missed it after
for sure
that 5-year break.
Yeah, because it kind of went away, and I miss so many of the familiar faces. There were so many great people. Like I listened back through the show we did recently where we had people submit clips, and just we had their voices talking, and there were so many people from the past. I was like, oh, I miss that guy. I miss that guy. So many fun, the people that were very involved in our show. I haven't seen them for a while, so hopefully some of them come back around again, and we can say hi again.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think that's the end of this episode.
That feels right. We've talked enough about ourselves for, I think, one day.
I guess the only thing I'll add there is let us know what you want to see. If there's something you want us to react to, we're set up in a way that we can kind of react to videos together. And that's a topic we've never done, or a thing we've never done. We've never had like a YouTube video that we watched together and commented on. And I think that could be a lot of fun.
That could be fun.
And that's something that doesn't fit in with the Reaper blog channel.
Yeah, we could take pre-recorded video questions. We could pop in and answer those. We can do, we might even be able to do some live stuff, just bringing people in, right?
Yeah.
So why not?
Definitely interviews, live interviews, guests, hosts, that sort of thing will be happening as well. So thank you guys for listening and watching, and leave your feedback in the comment section down below. And we're going to be on a bi-weekly schedule, one episode every 2 weeks. That's the plan. You know, hold us accountable. Let us know if we miss, and that you are expecting it of us. We also have a Buy Me a Coffee page if you like the show, you want to support what we're doing here and are excited about our return. Let us know with a couple bucks in the tip jar.
Or if you want us to go
Anything
away,
else?
tell us that too.
Yeah.
Had enough of you guys. You guys went
Send
away
us-
when you were supposed to.
Send us $10 to go away.
Deal.
Send us $100. We'll delay the show by a week. How about that? All right. So see you guys.
Thank you guys.